More than a century ago, Sir John Herschel, a photographic pioneer, wrote this about motion pictures. What I have to propose may seem to you like a dream. It is the representation of scenes in action photography. We've come far since those days. To those who are part of this industry, the finished print represents what took weeks or months or perhaps years to create. Each year, members of the motion picture industry run hundreds of millions of feet of Kodak film through their cameras and processors, printers and projectors. They make theatrical or industrial movies, films for education, for sports, for medicine, or for 100 other uses. But the one thing they depend on is Kodak's reputation for quality products. This is a story of how that film is made, a story of photographic principles and products, a story which begins behind the scenes. To understand motion picture film, it's important to understand the principles of photography. Photography is all based on a natural phenomenon. When certain silver salts are exposed to light, the silver in the emulsion, in a matter of seconds, turns into dark metallic silver that registers a black and white image. Now, to get from black and white to color really took some doing. A lot of people worked on it for a lot of years before a satisfactory method was developed. What they finally came up with is this. By combining the dyes yellow, magenta, and cyan in various combinations, we can produce a variety of other colors such as the red, blue, and green that you see here. So, if we can capture the various colors in a scene and record them as 3 images, cyan, magenta, and yellow, and put them together, we can reproduce the original scene. Since it is obviously impractical to take 3 pictures of every scene, the trick was to get these 3 colored images on one piece of film. That's what today's color film is all about. We'll demonstrate with this model. The cyan image is formed in the layer closest to the support or film base. The magenta image is formed in the layer in the middle. And the yellow image is formed in the top layer. In between, of course, there are filter layers to bar upper layer colors from passing through during exposure. That's only the briefest glimpse at the principle of color film. It takes some very complex developing procedures to turn these color layers, called emulsion, into actual visible color. But at least this is what color film is. 3 layers of selectively sensitive emulsion on a clear, tough support. Now, let's have a look at an actual emulsion. Emulsions start with some very bright people pursuing the objective to improve a specific film. Faster speed, better color rendition, easier processing, or a mix of these and other characteristics intended to make our pictures better. Present emulsions are so good and have come so far, it's a tough job to make improvements. But that doesn't slow down the efforts. Besides brains, you have to have faith and determination to be a development engineer. When working with a number of interacting layers of emulsion, it may take hundreds of experimental formulations, hundreds of test coatings, and more time and money than the accountants care to think about. But if our initial ideas were sound, eventually they'll pay off. And if repeated tests prove that the new emulsion is consistent, that it will deliver its designed qualities time after time, it can be released for production. Gelatin is one of the main ingredients of film emulsion. It's used to suspend the silver halide crystals. Pure gelatin is made from select animal hides and bones. The process begins with a wash in water and acetic acid. Next, the hides and bones are extracted. Then the solution is filtered and purified. The concentration is about 3% gelatin and the rest is water. We get rid of some of the water with this 3-story evaporator. The solution is recirculated until it reaches a concentration of 20%. Then it's chilled and put through an extruder. The drying alley removes the remaining water. It's chopped into fine powder, and the result is gelatin that's extremely pure. It has to be, or it would contaminate the sensitive film emulsion. Each batch of gelatin has slightly different properties. Several batches must be blended together to provide just the right gelatin for making quality motion picture emulsion. Now, the blended gelatin is dissolved in pure, distilled water. Light-sensitive operations are always carried on in the dark, but here we'll turn on some light in order to see what's happening. Solutions of potassium iodide, potassium bromide, and silver nitrate are added, and light-sensitive silver crystals are formed. Because the crystals are held in suspension by the gelatin, the mixture is called an emulsion. Emulsion making is a precise science. If the emulsion batch is approved, it's put into cold storage and held until called for. Now, when a particular type of film is scheduled, each emulsion needed in the multi-layer coat is withdrawn from cold storage, and separately, each is warmed up to its optimum manufacturing temperature. And now, a final series of tests to be sure that the rigid specifications for the emulsion are maintained. For slides or movies, the emulsion is coated on a support, which is clear, tough, inert plastic base. Few plastics will meet our strict requirements, but acetate base is one that will. Strange as it seems, the acetate for the base starts out as just plain wood. Wood contains the cellulose used in film base. First, the wood is chipped. Then it's treated to leave only the pure cellulose. The pure cellulose is combined with acetic acid. The result is pellets of cellulose acetate, which are mixed with solvents and a plasticizer. This results in a plastic syrup that pours like honey. In the manufacturing process, the cellulose acetate is mixed with the solvents and plasticizer in huge quantities. The plastic syrup is then spread thin and smooth on the surface of this very large wheel. The surface of the wheel is highly polished to give the film base its optically clear finish. Long rows of coating machines, 5 stories high. Inside each one is a wheel the plastic is spread on. As the wheel slowly turns, the plastic hardens and peels off as film base. Here, in a stream of warm air, the base dries and gets an adhesive layer to hold the emulsion. At the far end of the machine, miles of plastic base wind up on a big spool. The process goes on around the clock, every day of the year. The finished roll is ready. With the casting machines running all the time, The trick is to take the full roll off and thread up a new one while the base keeps rolling out. As in all phases of filmmaking, the new base must be tested. A strip is sent to the Quality Control Laboratory where we analyze its various physical properties. The tests have proven that the new roll meets Kodak standards, so it's stored, ready for emulsion coating. Just as in every other phase of film manufacturing, emulsion coating is a highly technical and critically controlled process. Not even the smallest particle of dust is allowable. Emulsion coaters wear static-free shoes and lint-free clothing. No air enters the plant until it's been through banks of very fine filters, and the quality of air is continuously monitored. Coaters even pass through a person cleaner, a large vacuum cleaner that removes any last bit of dust before they go into the coating room. This man gets the word. The emulsion is ready. It's piped directly to the coating machine. The coating machine is as long as a football field. Most of it is enclosed, but we will be able to look at some of its operations. Remember, this operation is done in total darkness. Normally having no light, the operator uses an infrared scope to examine the coat without fogging the film. The coat of emulsion is set and dried by a draft of ultra-clean air. Experienced technicians, backed by a computer, constantly monitor the operation to assure consistent results. Eventually, the film, still in total darkness, is wound up in big rolls, enough film to shoot a major theatrical motion picture. As at every other stage of this long process of film manufacture, samples undergo a thorough test regimen. The tests vary depending on the type of film involved. But at our manufacturing facilities, we simulate the conditions that movie film will experience in actual use. First, a physical test. The sample is exposed to a known density, processed, and examined in different types of light. If there are scratches, dirt, or other flaws, we need to catch them here. Tiny defects at this stage could become major distractions on the movie screen. Now, a sensitometric test to check for color reproduction, sensitivity to light, contrast, and base density. Test strips are exposed, processed, and examined with a densitometer. Then the information is fed into a computer which compares the test strip against a known standard. We need to know how this film will react to light. Movie crews can be tough on film. We've gained their confidence by being tougher. We scratch it to see how much damage it can withstand. We test for friction to make sure it will pass through the camera and projector gates smoothly, without jamming or slipping. We tear it because we want to be sure it won't tear in the theater. We check its rigidity. Film that is too stiff or too flexible could jam in a camera, processor, or projector. In all, we have more than 100 tests. We want to be sure the film is right, so those who make the movies can depend on it. When testing has proven that the film meets specifications, the large rolls are taken out of storage and slit into smaller ones, including 16 millimeter, 35 millimeter, and other motion picture sizes. Just a slight deviation in the width of these rolls, and the film would bind in cameras or projectors. So these slitting knives are inspected regularly. After the film has been packaged again in light-tight containers, it's carried off to be perforated. Like most aspects of film production, perforating is an operation that normally takes place in the dark. Here, each operator controls a bank of machines, loading and unloading them in sequence. Inside a camera or projector, sprockets will engage these perforations and use them to move the film with accurate registration and steadiness. Perforation tolerances are extremely close as those of a Swiss watchmaker. And they really have to be. The complex special effects in movies today may involve the use of a dozen or more pieces of film to create one scene. If everything is to line up precisely the way the artist imagined it, the perforations must be in perfect register. After perforation is complete, some of these long rolls, especially those of color negative, will be sent off to be cut into shorter lengths of perhaps 100 or 400 feet. But with color print film, the trend is to increasingly longer rolls. We are always looking for different packaging designs that make it more convenient for our customers to use the products we produce. One result of this has been the bulk packaging concept for the long rolls of motion picture print film. We've eliminated the can and put the film into black plastic bags and then directly into a recyclable shipping container called a box bin. The shorter rolls are often put into cans which are labeled and taped to create a light, tight seal. The cans are then boxed for further protection, and pallet loads of boxes are carried off to refrigerated storage. There they'll remain until they're shipped to customers around the world. The film is now in the hands of the cinematographers, special effects people, and others who work their own magic. So in some ways, this is the end of our story. But in other ways, it's just the beginning. We also stand behind that film, with technical sales and engineering representatives, distribution support people, regional engineers, and others who are as close as the telephone and ready to answer questions, provide technical details, or offer whatever assistance is needed. And we have the scientists, researchers, and dreamers who are always looking for ways to make film better, sharper, faster, to make the film do more so motion picture people can do more. We call that service, and it comes with every roll of film we sell. We put care and craftsmanship into everything we make behind the scenes.